Hello, everybody. My name is Ron, and welcome to Why This Film, a podcast where we explore the artistry, cultural impact, and legacy of movies in the Criterion Collection. Each episode, I sit down with experts and cinephiles to ask, why was this film chosen for the collection, and why does it still matter today? In this episode, we're stepping into the carefully constructed world of the Royal Tenenbaums, Criterion Spy number 157, the 2001 film from director Wes Anderson. Part family drama, part deadpan comedy, and melancholic character study, the Royal Tenenbaums follows a once brilliant group of siblings, Chaz, Margot, and Richie, whose early promise has long since given way to disappointment, isolation, and unresolved pain. When their estranged father, Royal, unexpectedly re enters their lives, the family is forced into an attempt of reconciliation. My guest today is Chris Cook, an assistant director working across film and television. He worked as a second AD on The Killer and The Morning Show, and a second AD on Ted Lasso. His career spans both high-profile streaming series and major studio productions, where he's been part of the teams responsible for translating large-scale creative visions into something that can actually function on a set day to day. That means coordinating schedules, managing crews, and keeping productions moving. Earlier in his career, Chris worked in the production department on films like Anchorman 2, Everything Must Go, and The Other Guys, building a foundation from the ground up and gaining firsthand experience in how sets operate at every level. That trajectory, from production roles into assistant directing on major projects, gives him a clear view of how films come together behind the scenes. That perspective makes The Royal Tenenbaums an especially fitting film for our conversation. And with that, here's my conversation with Chris Cook. You chose The Royal Tenenbaums. Is there a specific reason for that?
The second you told me that I had to choose from a Criterion film, I instantly chose Royal Tenenbaums. If I had to choose my favorite movie, I think I would choose The Royal Tenenbaums. And there's a lot of reasons why. To me, it's a perfect film because of so many reasons. Probably one of the best ensemble casts possibly ever. You can argue that. And I know Wes Anderson has gone on to have these more and more amazing ensemble casts in all his films. Like, he attracts the best of the best. But this was sort of the start of that, I think. I love Wes Anderson because he's a Texas guy and he, went to UT Austin, and I'm a big, UT person because I grew up outside of Austin. In that time period, like, Anderson was getting really big, and I was starting, like, the light bulb came on about wanting to work in the film industry. Matthew McConaughey and the Owen Wilson and Luke Wilson and Wes were all kind of Rick Linklater. They were all in this Austin mix. And I was in that too. And I was really just loving those movies. I mean, Rick Linklater is another one of my favorites, but Wes Anderson and all his movies are great. But to me, this has always been his best movie because it's, again, the cast, the story, characters, they're so well written. The music, the soundtrack is one of the best. The sets, the humor, the way you can relate to the dysfunction of the family that I think everybody has in their life. It speaks to the heart. I mean, Gene Hackman is one of the best actors ever, and a lot of people agree with that. I mean, you have Bill Murray, you have Gwyneth Paltrow, you have Luke Wilson, you have Owen Wilson, you have Ben Stiller. I mean, they're
Angelica
generational.
Houston.
Angelica Houston. Oh my
Don't leave
God.
her out.
Yeah. Alec Baldwin as the narrator.
As the narrator. Yeah, Wes Anderson's first four films, he goes Bottle Rocket, Rushmore, Royal Tenenbaums, and The Life Aquatic. What an incredible start to a career. It's pretty unbelievable. I feel like Wes is, and you can tell me if I'm wrong about this, or if you agree. Is he a divisive type of artist where you either get him or you don't?
I think there's something to that. I don't think he's for everybody. Like, it's almost like looking at a pastel painting, all these beautiful things that he builds. Every shot is art. I don't know if he's divisive. In my opinion, it's sort of like a band. You're like, I'm into their early stuff. So for me, I'm more into Wes Anderson because of his early stuff, because it's gotten, I don't know, not to say formulaic, but you kind of know what you're in for these days. And I think his scripts and his stories, they're almost cartoonish these days. It's more like you're gonna just go on this journey and be in this world and enjoy it. But again, it was sort of like just having like a bowl of ice cream. It's great, but it's not the Royal Tenenbaums or With Life Aquatic or Rushmore.
I learned a new term when I was doing my research for just Wes Anderson in general, planimetric staging. I've never heard that term because I know when I'm looking at a Wes Anderson film, beyond just the colors, there's something about it that it feels two-dimensional. So I started looking into things and I found this term. I was like, okay, that makes complete sense to me, where everything in front of the camera, everything's set perpendicular, and then the characters and the camera will move horizontally or vertically, like it'll
Oh,
follow
sure.
everything. And then I found an SNL skit that they did it. They created a fake horror movie trailer in the style of Wes Anderson. I'm like, damn,
I
they
love
got
it.
him. I'm like, did Wes
Well,
Anderson direct
you
this
can
SNL skit?
well, because he's so unique in the way he makes his movies, I think it leaves room for a little bit of humor. And if you get mocked on SNL, I guess that's a really big compliment. But yeah, he had this style, and I worked on this show years ago, and they tried to mimic it. And one of the things that you have to think about is in blocking, a scene. If you have two people apart from each other, a lot of times they shoot over the person, and you get a piece of their shoulder or their head, and then you get the other side, and you cut to the other actor over them to match. So what we always made sure of in our blocking of our scene and talking about our shots on the show was that there's no overs.
You just shoot straight on, like you said, and you've discovered that, and it's style. It's a choice. Not many people do it, but I think to me it puts you in this sort of world. Like you. I was thinking last night watching it for I don't know, like the 50th, 60th time. I don't even know.
You notice
That
something different every time, right? I mean, it's
you do.
the production design. There's always
Yep.
something different that you catch because when he shoots it that way, they aren't static backgrounds. They're dynamic backgrounds. There's people moving. They're doing things.
Oh, yeah.
There's a shot at one point where Angelica Houston's having a conversation, I think, with Margot, and through the window you can see somebody's back there eavesdropping. But there's always something going on in other parts of the frame besides just the two characters that are having a conversation. I have not seen it as many times as you, but clearly we're noticing a lot of the similar types of things. There's a line in the essay by Kent Jones that accompanies the Criterion release, and he writes that a lot of the shots of a Wes Anderson film are, quote, like illustrations from a slightly risque children's book.
Yeah.
And I pulled that out because that's such a great explanation.
Yeah. And I mean, the people that write these things, they just describe it so perfectly. Some of these critics and these movie historians, and it's amazing. I'm not a writer, but I noticed this stuff, and it's picturesque. And but what those shots do is to me, I was thinking last night, it just pulls you in so quickly. You're like, okay, I'm in this world now, and that to me is it's just pretty cool. Like the Gypsy Cab Company, which
Right.
doesn't exist, but like it's art, and art is so wonderful in that because it's Wes Anderson's mind. And then you have like the 147th Street Y, which there's not 100, I forget the number, but the streets don't go that high, in New York.
So because of your background, are you
Mhm.
watching films like this differently than I don't want to
Oh,
say
yeah.
like us normal movie goer people, but I've never been on a set in my life. Are you looking at things from that production standpoint because of how involved you've been in the production of television shows and movies?
It's a good question, and I think that it's fair to say that if it has to be really good for me to sort of shut that part of my brain off to enjoy it, because if it's not, then that part of my brain turns on and I start to think about where are they shooting it? Have I worked with that actor before? The dialogue, how tough it was to shoot that, or how they could have done it differently. I look at the extras. I start to think, oh God, that must have been tough, or that could have been, great to work on. So anyway, to answer your question is I do think like that constantly. And again, that's why, if I really want to kind of turn that side of my brain off, I lean into sports. But a movie like Royal Tenenbaums, even on the 50th viewing, still makes that part of my brain shut off and be able to enjoy it. And just kind of relax. And it's a comfort movie for me on so many levels, obviously. But yeah, it has to be really good, basically.
This film does have a lot going on. And one of
Yeah.
the things you mentioned the soundtrack earlier, the needle
Mm.
drops are amazing. You have tracks by Nico, Bob Dylan, The Clash, Paul Simon, The Ramones, Rolling Stones, Velvet Underground, John Lennon, Van Morrison. And then in the beginning, I believe there's an orchestral version of, is that a word? Orchestral?
Yeah.
Orchestra? Whatever. Version of Hey Jude.
And that is beautiful.
It's amazing. And he just drops them in there and they fit perfectly with every scene. They set the mood, the tone for what he's going for. it's when I'm watching it the first time, I don't know what I'm looking for, to be honest. I have no plan. I'm just trying to enjoy and take it all in, maybe from the story first. And then on these subsequent watches, I'm like, what the hell's that guy doing back there? Oh, there's a mouse. I didn't see that Dalmatian mouse before. It has nothing to do with the scene, but it's crawling around back there. And then I'm like, oh, wait a minute. Is that Hey Jude?
The songs are incredible. I mean, I remember like watching this movie in the theater thinking like I have to get this soundtrack. And I did. And I listened to it a ton because it's perfect. Absolutely perfect. I mean, like you said, the Rolling Stones and Dylan and the end with Van Morrison as they're leaving. I'd never heard that song until that movie. Amazing Van Morrison song. One of the greatest scenes is when he's with his grandkids, Gene Hackman, Royal. It takes them out on their little adventures where they're going to a dog fight and they're riding on the back of a trash truck. Paul Simon, me and Julio down at the schoolyard. I mean, that's a classic song too. It's kind of connects the grandfather that's wanting to spend time with his grandkids. And that song is such a fun loving kind of adventure in itself to where it just fits perfectly in that scene.
Yeah, there's a lot of different themes that I think he's exploring in this one. And one of the themes he's trying to explore is that idea of failure. You think about all the children and how they peaked essentially at an early age, where all three of them, well, I don't count Eli. I don't count Owen Wilson because he's not he wants to be a Tenenbaum. But
That's right.
The three kids, they've reached this peak at an earlier age in life. And Wes exploring this idea of failure and always trying to top your greatest achievement. And then the rest, and that's only the first like 10 minutes of the movie.
Yeah.
There's this economical way of filmmaking that he has in the beginning. And we're going to jump into the movie here in just a minute. And then the kids peak. And then there's the aftermath when they're all estranged from each other. And then bringing everybody back together, that theme of failure then changes to that idea of togetherness with your family to lift each other up, like having each other's backs and coming together and reconciliation and all of these great ideas. And I don't think I catch that stuff on first watches. And I think there's a lot to dig into with the Tenenbaums.
You get something different out of it each time. And, you notice these things because, like you said, there's always something happening in these shots, which is great filmmaking. And then, you notice the songs. I mean, so I think he probably got that from Scorsese because Scorsese has these amazing soundtracks that lead you on this journey, like Goodfellas and The Departed. There are these epic classic songs that some people say it's distracting, but I don't think that. I think it's part of the enjoyment of it. And again, it adds another layer and you start thinking about that song and why they chose it and what is that trying to tell? You know what I mean? It's part of the story.
I could probably spend about 2 hours talking about PTA and Scorsese needle drops and how badass they all are. I could probably
they're so badass.
I have had trouble with some films in segmenting them. Like, okay, I want to talk about this segment first, and then where does that end and where's the next one start? This film makes it really easy because it tells you prologue, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3.
Right?
It just goes right through. Made it really, really easy for me to separate in where we go. So are you ready to jump in and start talking through it? Prologue, we get an introduction to the family and the house, which is almost a character in itself.
Yeah, the whole city and the house.
Yeah, I want to talk about the city because Wes went out of his way to hide skyscrapers. There's a scene down by water where he had one of the characters block out the Statue of Liberty.
I never noticed that.
Yeah, Gene Hackman and Wes did not get along very well on this.
You're right.
On this.
So, I have a story about that.
Yeah, please do. Go ahead.
Bill Murray, who's another generational, one of my favorite actors ever. He has several movies in my top 10. But he's actually known for being difficult. And my mom's worked with him. She loved working with him on a movie called Ed Wood. But he's tough to work with. He was friends with Wes. And he basically had to defend Wes and stick up for him because Gene Hackman was giving him such a hard time. But I mean, again, he's an amazing actor. And I think he probably had some justifiable questions and wanted to give his best performance. I mean, working with actors it's tough. And if you're working with such a pro, there's a lot of baggage that comes with it in a good and bad way. But yeah, hearing that Bill Murray, who is difficult on his own right, say that Gene Hackman was him, I can only imagine, you know what I mean? If somebody's saying that they're difficult, then that's saying something.
Yeah, I think Wes said it's one of his regrets that he couldn't make this movie a more enjoyable experience for Gene Hackman, because he only had so many movies left in him at that point in
I know.
2001, I believe this movie was,
Yep.
which is crazy, 25 years ago. No wonder I didn't understand it when I watched it. I was a teenager, so there's no
Right.
way I probably would
Me
have
too.
understood what I was seeing. Gene Hackman does play the patriarch of the family, Royal Tenenbaum,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that Ethelene Tenenbaum, the matriarch,
Yeah.
played
Great
by
name.
the beautiful Angelica Houston.
Oh, yeah.
Chaz is introduced as our little businessman. The
Yeah.
adult version of him is played by Ben Stiller. Chaz has a BB lodged in his left hand, we learn, because he and the family were playing, and of course, Royal shoots him and he has that BB stuck in his hand. There's a story about that we'll get to.
Okay.
Margot is the adopted daughter. She is a free spirit playwright, missing half a finger, the adult version played by Gwyneth Paltrow. And Margot is reminded quite often that she is adopted. I'm sure she loves
Absolutely
that.
hilarious, but also sad.
Richie, the champion tennis player, in love with his adopted sister, Margot. Adult version played by Luke Wilson. All three are, you could describe them as Renaissance men. They are all
Oh, yeah.
highly accomplished before I don't know how old these kids are. They look like they're under the age of 12. And we get the voiceover storytelling by a very recognizable voice that you've mentioned, Alec Baldwin. And we learned all we need to know. I had to pause because I thought, wow, we got a lot of info here, and it's been 5 minutes. And the open focuses on all the children's strengths. The rest of the film focuses on all of their weaknesses. From a production standpoint, how difficult is it to pull off an opening like this where you're introducing the characters, the tone, visual language? You're setting the audience up where this is what you're in for, and it's been 5 minutes.
No, you're right. It's, in my mind, it's so difficult, but it's the genius of Wes Anderson. That's the writing. It really is the writing. And when I start a movie or TV show, I read the script and I go, oh my gosh, this is special. If I was reading that script, I would say, goodness, this is amazing. Like the way he can wrap that up in 5 minutes is unworldly talent. It's all in the script. It's like you said, PTA, Scorsese, Wes Anderson is in that category because of that. I mean, there's not many people that can do that. I mean, it reminds me, there's a bit of, for whatever reason, I don't know, I was watching last night, I was thinking about the soundtrack and the way he does that in such a quick time. I think The Departed does that so well, because it shows all these characters, it just throws it at you right at the start. Obviously, this has so much humor into it, and it's so creative. A tennis player, a playwright, a businessman. They're all so different, but yet again, like you said, which I've never thought about, is it shows how they peaked at a young age and now they have this dysfunction, and they're so eccentric too. And Angelica Houston is a archaeologist, and then
Yeah.
Danny Glover is in it too, is another just amazing actor. And again, I just go back to like the fact that he got all these people at that time. I mean, now it makes sense because, you know, these actors see these movies like Royal Tenenbaums and Rushmore and go, oh, I want to be a part of that. But then he hadn't really done that much. So the fact that he got these actors to sign up, it speaks to the script, because from a production standpoint, you try to get the biggest actors you can for the amount of money. They probably paid them less because they loved the script. So a lot of times you hear an actor and you see him on set, and I hear these conversations and they say, well, thank you for doing this project. And one of the first things that these actors will say is, well, the script was amazing. How could I say no? It's so unique, so funny, so heartfelt. I mean, you feel sorry for these characters, but you're also immediately attracted to them because they're so interesting, and they're all just really trying to get along, but they can't, and there's so much complexity to it. But it's at the same time, it's so funny. I mean, I was laughing out loud, and my wife last night was like teasing me because she's going, you're laughing, like, you let me watch. It's like,
Well, what is preparation like for an opening like this? Because it seemed like a lot of setups.
Yep.
Every kid is shown that they're good at just more than one thing. There's little things like Chaz, we need to see his motorized tie rack, but we also
That's
need
so
to see
funny.
him on the phone as almost as if he's a little real estate mogul. Richie, it's not just he's an excellent tennis player. Margot, it's not just that she can write. So there's a lot of setups. So
Oh, yeah.
what is that preparation like?
So yeah, you have the assistant director, the director, producers, locations. You have a lot of meetings. You have a lot of casting, which is big. So I'm sure they spent months and months trying to find these kids that look like the actor, but also they need to act and look like, the actor. So that's tough. I mean, working with kids is tough because for a lot of reasons, but if you can find the right kid, it's so special. But yeah, so that there's a lot of that going, and you have to figure out the sets that helps tell the story. You have meeting upon meeting upon meeting about what these kids should look like, how they should dress, how their hair looks, how their makeup should be, how the set should look. It's a fully collaborative thing. And a lot of times, so many people are coming up with different ideas. Like, what if we made, like, I don't even know where that came from, that mechanical tie rack. I mean, that could have been a Wes idea. That could have been a production designer idea.
I think Wes's roommate in college had it. Or something
is that
like
right?
that. Like it was someone he knew that had it. Yeah, it was something strange like that.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot that goes into it, and I just wish that people that enjoyed movies could see, kind of be a fly in the wall, and see these endless amounts of conversations going into it, because it's way more than you can imagine. But somebody like Wes, I imagine, has he, a great director has a great vision. And so I think a lot of it was probably him being very specific, because a lot of his shots are very specific. And so I think that just kind of speaks to his mind of how smart he is and how talented and ingenious he is.
Well, I think one of the shots that he throws in here after we get introduced to the characters, which I think shows that he has some balls, because
Oh yeah.
it's the cast of characters. We have that planimetric staging camera shots of all the characters, but he puts the character name and the actor's name, which I found to be so interesting because they just spent all this time pulling us into the world. And whenever you show me Bill Murray, Angelica, you show me the real names, you run the risk of me not seeing Etheline and Royal. You run the risk of me seeing Angelica and Jean instead. But
you're right,
because there's so much shit going on in the background, and he shows these
also the
people,
way
it's great.
Yeah. I mean, again, that gives me the chills, because it's so ballsy, and it's such a cool thing to even notice that he does that. But what that makes me, and actually my wife noticed it too, she goes, "This is like a play." So what that says to me is it's like you're sitting down, right, in the play, the lights go down, and then before the lights go down, you're looking at the playbill, and you say, "Well, Bill Murray as so-and-so, Angelica Houston as Etheline Tenenbaum, Gene Hackman as Royal Ten." I mean, it's a cool thing. I mean, and I don't think it takes away from a play either. It kind of gets you excited to say, "Wow, we're going to see these actors play these characters," and they're so famous that it's like, I can't wait to see their portrayal of these characters.
Yeah, it's funny. If it were people that I'd never heard of, I'd be like, "Oh, okay, cool." And on the other end, it's I've heard of everyone, and I'm like, "Oh, this is badass. All these people are in this movie." So it actually doesn't really take me out of it at all.
So badass. You're like, "Oh my God, yes." They all have these cool introductions too, like they're putting on a hat, or they're adjusting their tie, or they're smoking a cigarette, and again, that's just speaks to Wes Anderson's genius. It's something else.
Chapter 1, we then fast forward 22 years later, and Royal is living in the Lindbergh Palace Hotel. He's been there for the last 22 years, and he gets kicked out. He doesn't have enough money to pay his masseuse, I don't think. We learn about
Sing Sing 100.
Yeah, that's right. We learn about the friend of the family, Eli, played by Owen Wilson. He's grown up to become a writer. I don't know if he's supposed to be some mirror to an actual author of some kind, but he's definitely his own character. He seems like, we'll learn later on as the movie goes on, if you told me he really wants to be a Tenenbaum, I'd say, oh yeah, I can see it. Well, besides the fact that he's sleeping with Margot, maybe he might not want to be a Tenenbaum. Oh, I guess it doesn't stop Richie. So
no,
we learn Margot is married to a character named Raleigh, played by Bill Murray. Raleigh Sinclair is doing some sort of testing on the child, which is kind of strange. Is like recreate the shape, and then he can't, and it's interesting.
Interesting. How bizarre.
Yeah. It's the whole thing.
That's something that I will quote with a friend of mine, and when I work with him, we'll set a scene, and if it's weird, we'll go, "How interesting, how bizarre."
Well,
so laugh out loud funny. Bill Murray, classic.
As the scenes carry on, and it's just coming at you fast and furious that you almost can't catch your breath. You're like, oh my God, I can't keep up with everything that's going on. I can't keep up with who is who and who are these people. I see Bill Murray, like, what is he to marry to Margot? That's an interesting choice, considering she's probably 30 years younger than him. Chaz is training his sons on how to respond to an emergency in a scene, because we learn that his wife, how does Royal describe her? a terribly attractive woman. Is that what he says to him?
Yeah, something like that. That's right.
His wife died in a plane
In
crash.
a plane crash.
Etheleen's working as an archaeologist. Her coworker Henry, played by Danny Glover, would like to marry her. Pagoda is the name of the person I couldn't think of. Pagoda.
He's like the butler of the house.
He tells Royal that Henry has proposed to Etheleen. What is it about it? I can't quite put my finger on it that allows us to not just hear the information, but I'm taking it all in. It normally takes me a lot longer than 15 minutes just to remember character names, motivations, but there's something about the way it's being presented that I can't quite put a finger on that allows me to, okay, I got it. I'm in the world. I understand.
It's so hard to do. I mean, I think that's probably why I'm intimidated to write, because how do you get to that point of telling these stories that fast and that precise to get all that information in? And again, I think that's why it's such a great rewatchable movie is because of that. Because it is so fast, and then you end up noticing more and more because of it.
The adults, they're all dressed and looking like they're stuck in a time of their greatest successes when they were kids. From a movie making standpoint, I understand, because you recognize, oh, the boy with the headband is the adult with the headband. I get it.
That's right.
But I like the idea
that connects their timeline.
But I like the idea of they're stuck in a time where they were at their best. That's why they have that's why Margot wears the eyeliner like that.
Even as a kid.
She's doing the same as an adult. What is pre-production like on a film like this? That there's a lot of wardrobe. They're using a lot of blocking to do a lot of the communicating. Instead of traditional dialogue, the traditional dialogue is there, but we're getting a lot more from wardrobe and blocking. So what is pre-production like from that standpoint?
You have a meeting with the costume designer. That could have been a Wes thing. Wes could have said, I want her to have the same makeup as a child as she does as an adult. And I want Richie to have the same headband as he has as a child and he has as an adult. Or that could have easily been a costume designer idea, which again, that's the beauty of filmmaking, is that you have these collaborative ideas and you hire people that hopefully will bring something like that to the table. That's something that you don't quite know because you weren't there. But my guess is that it could have been a Wes idea, but you never know. Like the makeup artist could have said, oh, I have an idea. Why don't we make the young girl have the same eyeliner as she does as an adult? And Wes might have said, genius, thank you, let's do it. Or the costumer goes, I'm going to give the boy the same headband. And Wes might go, oh, this is why I hired you. You know what I mean? Wes could have said, hey, make sure we want to match these kids' look to their adult look. So let's make her hair the same as when she's an adult. Let's make her eyeliner the same. Let's make, Chaz dressed the same as a kid when he's an adult. So there's a lot of different things that happen in prep. The better movies and TV shows that I've been a part of, you have the best pre-production going into it. So you're ready. It's like this podcast. You're prepared. You've done your homework. Like anything in life, it's not luck that you just come across this movie. It's well written. They probably had an amazing prep. They had a talented crew. They had a talented group of people, and they figure all this stuff out in pre-production or prep, that when you start shooting, it's there. And then the magic happens, because then these actors bring their own take to these things. And then that's where the movie magic comes in. But you map out your shots. You do shot listing, which is something that some people probably don't think about. But the director and the director of photography will go to the location, and then they have a script, and then they say, this is the shot I want here. This is what we're trying to tell with this shot. This is where we want to have these sets built. We want to have these props. We want to have these extras. And that's when the ADs come in and say, okay, we'll make sure that all this is there for Wes. As ADs, we make sure that all the director has his support and all the things that he wants are there for him to kind of play with and paint with. And we help with that process.
Yeah, I don't think people realize how much thought goes into it. There's so much that goes into making anything. The fact that anything gets made is amazing to me because of all that has to go into it. Like even the detail that anyone that's reading a book in this film, they're reading a book that another character wrote. Or like in Etheleen's case, she's reading clippings that Eli sent her about himself. Richie's reading plays that Margot wrote.
But it just adds depth to this world. And it's so incredible. I mean, it's just like, I cannot say enough about this movie. I mean, it really is. It's just incredible for those reasons. And I'm glad you picked up on that because it adds depth. It adds humor. It adds thought. Eli Cash, what a great character name, is he's this writer and he writes this book about
If Custer didn't die.
Little Bighorn. But did he die? That's
Yeah.
what this book talks
This
about.
book
And it's this,
presupposes that what if he didn't? That's so
what
silly.
if he didn't? You know, and then it's this he uses slow motion so well too.
Mhm.
And he's like walking through and all these photographers are trying to take his picture and interview him. And then it speeds up into regular motion, which is incredible. But again, that's a choice that the director and director of photography make. But the fact that he is this writer and he's kind of down and out and he's getting interviewed and he goes, tell me about, I think the book's name is Wildcat.
Yeah, I think so.
Which is a different book that he writes. And he's like, not a success. And he sits there and he's thinking about it. And he goes, and then he's just quiet. And he just goes,
You
and he
still
goes,
need to get up
yeah,
and
I'm going to leave. And he walks out and they're watching it on TV and they're like, he's on drugs. And it's just like so funny. And again, it's like this downward spiral. Like he's on drugs and, you know, Royal is this kind of alcoholic smoker and he's like faking his like cancer. And it's just, again, it's just so genius. And, you know, it reminds me of the scene when he's trying to get back, you know, in the family and he's so desperate enough that he says he's dying. I mean, talk about another like ballsy thing to do. Because a writer could have easily been like, he could just stay around and keep asking and say, oh, I just want to see the kids. I just want to meet my grandchildren. I just, like, in a normal life, that's probably what would happen. Like a grandfather that is realizing he's toward the end of his life and he wants to see his kids that he's been kind of neglecting. And he just kind of keeps coming around saying, please take me back. I apologize for my past. I'm so sorry. That's the easier arc. But the fact that he goes, all right, well, you know what I'm going to say? I'm going to tell him I have cancer, even though I don't.
I like that they actually started to bring two of the kids back home before Royal approaches Ethel and lies about his cancer diagnosis because Chaz and his two boys show up at the house first. And I think they're having some sort of party. Looks like I think they're playing cards. Chaz is back. He's moving into the house, back to his childhood home because he says their house is unsafe.
Yeah. Which shows how neurotic he is because he's so worried that his wife has died and he's their only parent and he's just so worried about his kids and the neuroses that goes on with that. They had their bags packed and Angelica Houston goes, wait, but did you have your bags packed before you realized that you couldn't go back in? And it's just not safe.
Ben Stiller asks Wes, why are we wearing these red tracksuits? And Wes, there's something about these Criterion releases that the audio commentary that accompanies these, I've said this before on past episodes, that it's like my own personal film school because there's a variety of people that do these. In this one, it's just Wes. I've listened to others where I listened to the Thin Red Line commentary and it wasn't Terry Malick. It was two editors and someone, a production designer or something. Like you get so much information from these. Anyway, Wes is asked by Ben Stiller, why are we wearing these red tracksuits? And Wes in the commentary says, I didn't really have an answer for him. Wes was thinking more in the lines of aesthetics. But what he said he told Ben was that it was for safety, that if they were in a crowd, they could be spotted. If they were walking along the road or crossing the street, they'd be seen so they wouldn't get hit by cars. And he's like, I thought that was a pretty good explanation. I'm like, what a freaking genius that you could think of that off the top of your head like that.
Quick. You know, you have to come up with these quick answers sometimes because a lot of times these actors have so many questions about their character and you do have to think fast as a director and being quick can save you big time.
Well, Margot also decides to return home. She's locked in her bathroom smoking. She decides that she wants to go home because she's in a rut and she needs to change. And Raleigh, her husband, played by Bill Murray, is wondering what in the hell is going on here. And she returns home and naughty, Eli is in her closet wearing his underwear. And he puts his cowboy hat on.
Hilarious.
So this filming location, it's in an actual home. So when you have a lot of actors, all these actors are going to be in one location like this. What's a logistical challenge that you have to deal with? Because it's not like a set where you can say, you know what, this isn't going to work. We'll just take this wall out, or
That's right.
we'll move things around. Like, you can't do that in actual home. I guess I just helps you answer that question, didn't I? I didn't let you answer.
No, you're right. And it's tough. Like locations are always harder than being on stage because it's a controlled environment. You have the ability to move a wall, like you said, or you have all this extra space for all the equipment. That's something that I think most people don't understand is there's so much equipment and people involved that, like, if you're looking at a frame on a movie, just imagine that outside the frame within inches is equipment and people making this movie. And literally within inches, like we were filming the scene on the morning show on Friday night, and I'm on the edge of frame. Like Jennifer Aniston is here and I'm just right there. I'm just on the edge. Above there's lights. There's a boom that is picking up the dialogue just out of frame. And it's tough on location, and that house is probably tight, very tight. So on the logistics, what happens is you find a house, and then you have to figure out where you're going to hold these actors when they're not working. So a lot of times you rent out a house next door, and it could be multiple houses. So like one house is for the actors to hang out in when they're not filming, and you have to keep them happy. You have to make sure they're comfortable, because if they get uncomfortable, then it creates problems for us. And then you have probably another house or another lot somewhere that has the trucks. You have the extras. If there's extras, they have to be kept in an area where they're comfortable and safe. Then you have another house probably that you have equipment there, or they have equipment out on the street. So there's a lot of logistics that goes into it.
But does having one primary location like this make things a little simpler, or more pressure because, hey, this is our main location. We can't screw anything up here, because if we screw it up here, it's going to be screwed up for any other shot that we have down the line? Or does it make it easier or simpler? This is our main spot. We're going to be doing a lot here.
Less locations is usually better. And if that's your main location and they probably spent months there, that makes it easier because you get to know it. But again, that happens in pre-production. You spend weeks figuring out these locations, and you location scout. They may have had 5 or 6 other houses in mind, but they've chosen this one because of the ease that it would be to film in, but also it does tell the story. It starts out with a location manager taking photos, and then if the director likes it, then those, let's go see it. Then they go see it. Depends on the project. It could happen a year before. And there's also cost involved. So this house, they want $800,000 to film here, or they want $1 million. So then you go, well, maybe we'll do the cheaper house because we can add more money to this part of the story. It's a whole production, as they say. Since it was a real house, that makes it harder, but it also gives it more of a feel, and it's a character rather than building it on a stage and just shooting like the exterior shot of it and then building these sets inside of it. Wes is probably a guy that probably likes the realness of it. So
this next scene is actually when Royal approaches Athlete on the street, asking for the family back, tells her that he's sick and he's going to be dead within 6 weeks. But we know Royal's actual intentions because he has nowhere to live at this point.
No,
he was kicked out of the hotel.
That's right. He's desperate. And that's huge in storytelling. You want your protagonist to have this desperateness.
He's so desperate that he has to lie and say that he's going to be dead in 6 weeks, which makes me wonder, like, what was the plan? Was the plan to have a miraculous recovery with your fake doctor? He's giving himself only 6 weeks to win the family back after 22 years of being away from
derelict.
Them. Yeah. So,
well, he didn't have a plan. That's the thing. And then that makes it funny. She starts crying and she gets super upset. And then he realizes, oh no, I've upset her. I don't know what to do. How do I react? And he says, I'm sorry, I'm not dying. And then she hits him hard.
Yeah, she hits him pretty good.
And it looks like she really hit him. And then he goes, oh, wait, now what do I do? Because now she's pissed and now I'm really not going to be able to come back. So he goes back into his lie and says, I am dying. And she goes, well, what's wrong? And then he just pats his stomach. What's wrong with you? And he just kind of goes, and he pats his stomach. He doesn't really describe what his ailment, his cancer is. It's just genius.
The last person missing is Richie. And there's another use of slow motion that you mentioned earlier, because off the bus comes Margot to greet Richie. And that slow motion, the use of that. I mean, he's already said, I'm still in love with Margot because he sends that letter to Eli. But now the use of the slow motion of him watching her come off the bus makes it even more clear that he is in love with her. And now all the children, they're back under one roof.
That's right.
So are ensemble scenes like these, when we get everybody together, are those difficult days on set?
They're so difficult. Well, 'cause you have to think about it. So you have to get all these people ready. People ask me, what is an assistant director? We're sort of like a logistical person in an army. We're like there to make sure everything goes smooth and we have all our equipment. We have all of our troops ready to go. I always kind of joke because there's so many people on the set that have their craft. And I go, well, I don't really do anything. I just sort of stand here with my walkie-talkie saying, this is the set. This is the, let's go, action, roll, cut, moving on. This is our next scene. But we watch everything happening. But we are like a conductor. I always say we're sort of like a maestro or like an orchestra leader. We're making sure all our instruments are in tune and are playing the same song. When you have a big ensemble, it's very difficult for many reasons. One is making sure that they are happy, for one. They know what scene we're shooting. They know what time they're there. We have to add extra hair and makeup people, extra costumers. Sometimes they have their personals that they will not work on a film without them. Getting these people ready is a challenge for us, and making sure that they're there on time, and then making sure that they are comfortable. But then blocking these scenes with all these actors is tough because you have a lot of different coverage. So rather than just shooting a scene with 1 or 2 people, you have 6, 8, 10 people in a room. So that's extra coverage. You have to spend extra time shooting these actors, and it takes time.
There's a scene where Royal, we're not there yet, but when Royal is in his hospital bed or whatever it is, regular bed, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But almost every character in the movie's there, save for maybe Eli. But this scene where Royal is chapter 3, when Royal wants to mend his relationship with his children, and Chaz having no interest in that. You have just Ben Stiller's character, Chaz. He's on his own. Gene Hackman is shot on his own. And then Margot and Richie, Luke and Gwyneth. I like to refer to people as their first names like we're buddies.
Yeah. That's good. That's right. I love
They're
it.
sitting on a couch together.
Yeah.
So they're not all necessarily together. For all we know, those are all on separate days. But those big ensemble group scenes like that, where Henry calls out that Royal's full of shit. I'm not going to jump ahead yet. We're gonna bookmark this, and we're gonna come back to that point.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to get lost jumping around.
Sure. Yep. You're the director here, my friend.
Yeah, but I got to keep the train on the tracks. So,
and I'm the actor. You know what I mean? This is
right.
This is your vision. That's the thing.
I got to get my practice in.
That's right. You're doing great.
Margot's with Eli, and Eli spills the beans that Richie is in love with her.
Right.
And it's a second hint that's really subtle that Eli is abusing drugs, because they have this nice car in a back alley, graffiti everywhere, and he's knocking on or he's using an intercom system or buzz system, whatever, to get in and out of this really shady spot.
So funny.
Yeah,
it's hilarious.
He's like, oh, I need to pick something up. Very strange. So Eli, he is an outsider. He's kind of forcing his way into this family. We'll learn later that Margot has not ever been starved for affection. So the fact that she's with Eli, it's a little bit of a surprise now, but later I'm like, oh, well, she's a little promiscuous, I suppose. Do you ever treat certain characters in how you stage them differently to show this person is an outsider, or just a way to show more about this character without actually saying it using dialogue?
Well, thinking about this character, I just think that they did it so well. He's a writer. He's dressed differently. He's on drugs. Those are all the things that are different about him than the Tenenbaums. That's a way to show it. The drug use, he drives this crazy car. He's a writer, probably the influence from the Tenenbaums growing up with them, but he writes different things, and he's, he wants to be with Margot probably to get in the family, right? Because if he's with her, then, he's now the son-in-law. And so there's a lot, those are great reasons right there.
Some of the camera choices are really interesting that Wes and whoever the DP is, because Royal approaches Ari and Uzi. Those are Chaz's kids. Great child actors, by the way.
Oh, yeah, they were great.
And Royal's using the kids as a way to weasel his way in with Chaz, because Chaz seems to be very anti-Royal. He wants nothing to do with Royal.
Right.
And Royal's going to use the kids to get his way in there. So when Etheline and Royal are speaking on the street back in chapter 2, I believe, there's a segment there where they are on the right side of the frame and the whole left, and they are just taking up maybe a quarter of the frame, and the left side has a big tree in it.
That's funny. I saw that. I noticed that last night. Yeah, it's great.
But
That long dolly shot, which is,
yeah,
the great dolly shot. Yep.
like the idea of Royal speaking to the boys and there's a fence between them, that I artistically understand. We're representing that Royal is separate from the family. He's not yet, he's literally on separate sides of the fence. The random tree in the frame, I just can't hammer down the reason for that.
You're so right, and it's so cool. I just think that they came upon it and they decided to just to use it. A lot of times when you dive deep into this stuff and then you're on set, it's like very much like it probably just came to be so organically that they just went, well, we like it. And Robert Yeoman is the DP, and he's done a bunch of his movies, and he's a genius in his own right because all these movies he's done are just gorgeous. Sometimes things just come together, like a recipe, in a great dish. This just came together so wonderfully. But it can also go the opposite way, and it can be really great on paper, but it doesn't come out well for whatever reason. There's so many reasons.
It's like a high wire act in some respects, because Royal is a weasel, but he's also immensely charming. Is that something that is Gene Hackman performance? Is it writing? Is it direction? Is it all those things kind of wrapped into one?
All those things wrapped into one. Very, very well said. It's I think
I don't want to like Royal, because he's kind of like he's a freeloading absent father. I don't want to like him, but God damn it, is he charming.
I think most great films, the main character has flaws, because we as humans all have flaws, and we can relate to this person, then start to care for him. And without a leading character, without those qualities, your movie cannot be as dynamic. With Royal, the charm comes from that. It's something that you can relate to. And that's what makes him lovable.
The next scene, they're at the Maddox Hill Cemetery. We learn that Richie's meltdown as a tennis pro, which the scene is kind of, I'm a big sports person, and it makes me laugh that a tennis pro would be served a ball and he would send it like out of the arena, and his return shot is just ridiculous. But he was pissed because Margot had married Raleigh. There's a scene with Eli and Richie back together again, Luke and Owen Wilson. For some reason, they have great chemistry. I wonder why that is.
Yeah.
Chapter 4, Royal calls Richie and convinces him to talk to the family about Royal coming to stay at the house. And of course, during that family discussion, it comes out that Royal's already upstairs. He's already weaseled his way.
He's already upstairs.
He's already up there. And Chaz goes up and he tries to throw him out. And the bellhop, if you're not paying attention, you think it's an actual doctor, but it's actually, oh shoot. See, this is a great actor, and I should have written it down.
He's a character actor, and
he's a character actor, and he's so good.
And he's so good. He's the hotel elevator operator. And so he's his buddy, because he was staying in that hotel, and he kind of brings him along and says, you have to fake like you're a doctor, although they don't show that. But that's, again, the genius of the movie. It's like all of a sudden you see him as the elevator, bellhop, and then he's all of a sudden the doctor. And because they showed him so clearly earlier, then you immediately go, oh, this is hilarious, because he's.
Yeah, and if you've watched Seymour Castle. So if you've seen
Seymour Castle, yep.
Yeah, so if you've seen any movies with him in it, he's a very recognizable voice. It's a recognizable face. Right. So it's a perfect person to put in that role, to be like, oh, wait, I've seen that guy before. That guy's not a freaking doctor. What the hell's he doing?
Hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
Royal catches Eli sneaking out of the house. Yeah. Royal calls,
I know you, asshole.
Yeah. And Royal calls Margot out over her infidelity, which Margot is like, get the hell out of here, man. You haven't been in my life for 22 years, and you're going to have the guts to come in here and act like my father? Are you crazy? Raleigh then but Raleigh's then on the roof with Richie, confiding that he thinks she's having an affair. Richie explodes in anger. There's so much happening.
Punches the window, which was not
so funny. It was not scripted. that's what it cuts really quickly afterwards because Wes was like, "Oh shit, is he okay?" Because that wasn't supposed to be something that happened. So he
Oh,
ran
I
over
didn't know
and checked on Luke.
that. Thanks for telling me that. That's so great.
There's arguments, there's secrets, people are coming and going, and it never feels confusing.
No,
So is this something that you watch differently when you have all this coming and going, or is this just like, another day on set? This is another scene. Because I guess you're not cutting the film together. Like you may not have that editor's eye in mind, but when you see this after the fact, have you ever seen something come together and after the fact meant, oh man, it just all clicked for me. This is so cool.
a good director and an AD actually thinks like an editor in a way of, oh, you can use it this way or you can cut to this. That's the beauty. It's like you see these actors do these things that you're not expecting and you're like, oh, that's so cool. Then you watch the final product and you're like, they didn't use this or they decided to go this way with it. That it just speaks to the cast in this movie. And they're all so talented and they've had these amazing careers for a reason.
There's a lot of montages in this movie, and we get one here with Royal and Ari and Uzi. They're having fun with grandfather and grandkids. They jump in a pool. There's horses. There's go-karts, water balloons. There's shoplifting. There's riding a garbage truck. There's dog fighting. This feels pretty chaotic, but do you feel like the movie is letting Royal win us over, even though we probably shouldn't be feeling this way? Because the sequence changes how I felt about Royal as a character. Did that work on you as well?
100%. It just shows that he actually does have a good heart, even though he's taking him in places that he probably shouldn't. But
Dog
for me,
fighting and shoplifting. It's not just like showing he's connecting with his grandkids. They're doing illegal shit.
yeah. And the shit they're doing, though, is so important because these kids, well, there's so many reasons why it's such a great scene. One, the montage works perfectly. Again, the music with Paul Simon's song, they are doing stuff that I think you don't want your kids to do, but it's important for kids to kind of go out and do that kind of stuff. And they're not getting that from their dad. Has them working out. I think the kid says 16 times a week or
Yeah,
something like
yeah, and he
that.
has them very sheltered, very guarded.
Very
He's got
guarded.
them in a bubble of like, I'm going to prepare you for bad things to happen, even though I'll never put you in a position where something bad could happen. Although at the end of the film, he doesn't have them in a position where they could get hurt, and they almost do get severely hurt. So no matter
That's right.
what amount of protection he's trying to put on them, he can't protect them from everything.
That's right. And it just speaks to, again, to something that you can relate to growing up. So maybe some of the people in the audience have parents like that. I mean, who knows? Maybe Wes's parents were like that, and or maybe he knew someone that had that, going on. Gene Hackman says that in the movie. He's like, I'm talking about going out and cutting it up and 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 being out in the streets or whatever he says. I can't remember the line, but it's just like his way of saying like, all right, these kids are so sheltered. I want to show them a good time in my way of of relating to them. And it also makes him more lovable because it shows that he cares. Even though he's taking them to these crazy dangerous places, he's spending time with them and showing them a good time.
And Chaz is not happy. Chaz doesn't even know what they were doing, and he's unhappy because the kids were gone. And this is when he pulls Royal into that closet full of board games. He's clearly not happy with Royal. And Royal actually calls Chaz out on not recovering from his wife's death. So even though Royal is kind of a deadbeat dad, he was right to call out Margot for infidelity. He's right to call out Chaz on, look, you need help. You have not recovered from something incredibly traumatic that has happened to you. And what you're doing with your kids is probably not the best thing for them. You're doing what's best for you. And he calls him out on it, and he's right. And this confrontation in a closet full of board games was obviously a deliberate choice. That stuff doesn't happen by accident.
Mhm.
What thought goes into choosing a space like that for a scene? It's very small. It's a very intimate spot.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. So they thought about it and said, you know what? Let's do it in the closet with board games. So then that brings them back to childhood. One of the things that's so special about this movie is these kids needed a dad, and they didn't have it. They needed him for their guidance, and they're slowly starting to realize he starts to become sort of the voice of reason, and he kind of ends up being a good dad in a way of like, you've obviously not recovered from your wife's death. He starts to tell Gwyneth, you shouldn't be cheating on your husband. He starts to talk to Richie, Luke, what happened out there with your meltdown on the
Yeah,
tennis
that
court?
later conversation on the roof. And
Right.
then Richie
And
finally
so,
confides
and
it.
so
And like,
he
I'm in
starts,
love with her.
yeah. And then he's there for them in a way that he hadn't been. And so it's
Right.
special.
But at
And
the
again,
same
that's why this
time,
film is
it's a
so
guy that's
good.
faking stomach cancer. Like, what the hell? You know, it's
Right,
like
but
taking the shortcut to get back into someone's life instead of actually doing the right things to get back into their lives. God, but he's so damn charming.
they were missing out on that type of advice and father leadership and love. And then he shows back up and he kind of just steps in his weird way, but he's kind of guiding them and helping them. And I know it's out of the timeline, but even when he's in the ambulance, Ben Stiller, who's the kid who had the most resentment towards him, he is there and he says, "I love you, my boy." You could cry in that moment. I think I have. And, it's just a father-son bond that is there that so many people can relate with.
Well, chapter 5 starts, and Royal again is turning on the charm as he's on his walk with Ethylene. And Henry and Royal have a confrontation here in the kitchen. Royal's being overtly racist. He says some things to Henry throughout the movie. He calls him Coltrane in this scene, which obviously he's he's not being kind to Henry. He's
That's
a bad
right.
guy in a lot of ways,
That's
but the
right.
film makes him likable. There's something about the willingness to forgive family for wrongdoings. If this is a random person that acted this way, you would have to do a lot to redeem yourself. But if that's a family member, you don't have to do as much for redemption because the blood is thicker than water.
Yep. You're right. And I think that is so funny in so many wrong ways, but it shows that this
I mean,
guy has,
yeah, I hate to say that
this
I laugh
guy
when
has,
he calls him
oh my
Coltrane.
God.
'Cause I'm like, oh my God, Royal,
Well, also
such a
when
dick.
he looks at him and he goes, "Look at that old black buck." It's like, oh my God.
Whoa, buddy.
Like it's racist in a way that you still want to give him a chance because he's this 70-year-old guy who's like probably an alcoholic. And again, he's faking his own death, like cancer. And he's been this like derelict father. And so again, it's relatable. People in other generations have these idiosyncrasies. Maybe they're racist, maybe they're alcoholics, maybe they're sexist, maybe they ignore their kids and they're not stand-up father. And so he has all these qualities that you just normally go, oh my God, this guy is terrible. But then you have these scenes where he's bonding with his grandchildren and he's giving fatherly advice and he's calling out his kids for not doing the right thing. So it's a balance of humor and things that are offensive, but at the same time, it balances it with his good qualities and his charm.
Well, it all goes to shit because Henry has had enough of it.
Oh,
he spies them walking and then he finds a Tic Tac instead of medication. He's like, "Is that a Tic Tac?"
yeah,
in
which
the
is
pill bottle.
absolutely hilarious.
And Henry calls him out about the stomach cancer in front of the entire family. So it's not a confrontation between Henry and Royal. He gets the whole family up there. And to me, that changed the impact of all of it coming out at once, as opposed to it being a private moment. And Royal is packed and he is out the door again. And this is when Pagoda and that actor, I don't know his name, he actually passed over a decade ago, I want to say. And he stabs him with a pocket knife. The real stabbing of Royal is whenever he says to Margot about Henry, "He's not your father." And Margot says, "Neither are you." And that has a double meaning because she is adopted. He really isn't her father. And also when he had an opportunity to be her father when she was a child, he never fully accepted her as a Tenenbaum.
That's right. Without those confrontations with him being racist and calling him names, and then they start to argue and scream at each other.
Yeah.
Without that, then I don't think the Danny Glover character would have called him out.
Yeah.
So those scenes are critical because of that. So if they just got along, or maybe they had some weird awkwardness to them, they take it to another level. And again, it's humor, but it's also conflict. So without that conflict, I don't think Danny Glover's character would have called him out.
Yeah, that's a good point. We jump then next where we get in chapter 6, we get more of a focus on Margot. A private investigator was hired by Raleigh to see what Margot has been up to. And another montage on Margot, and this one is on Margot Tenenbaum and her whole life. And what Raleigh takes from it is that she smokes, which is a great comedic timing line from Bill Murray. And Richie's pissed. And Raleigh reads Margot's, it's essentially her sexual history plus that she smokes. He focuses on something so small, and then Richie reacts with emotion. What do you think that says about how these two characters see Margot?
Yeah, Richie loves her, obviously. She's like the stepsister and she's not blood. And it's weird still. Weirdness in this movie is so perfect because it's just weird enough, but at the same time you go, well, she's adopted.
Royal finds his way back into the hotel. Turns out that he's now working at the hotel. That's how he found his way back. And we get another really quick cutting montage when Richie is cutting his hair and shaving his beard. He's thinking of Margot and he attempts suicide, which Dudley's the little boy that Raleigh was running tests on at the beginning of the film and kind of always seems to be in Raleigh's sidecar. This moment really caught me off guard because it's pretty raw. It's pretty graphic compared to the rest of the film.
It's disturbing.
Yeah, it's very disturbing. And it's I don't know, because you've seen a little bit of everything, does that change how you experience when you experience heavy material on screen, does that change how you experience that as an audience member? Because this definitely caught me off guard. And because I'm thinking these pastel colors, this unique Wes Anderson style, there's comedy. Well, what's going on with this absent father? And all of a sudden, a pretty bloody suicide attempt here near the tail end of the film.
It's very disturbing and graphic, and I think that it just takes a dark turn, which is interesting for this movie. And I kind of came out of nowhere, but again, it keeps you on your toes as an audience member. And I think working on a film, it's very much like if the tone of the movie is a comedy, you're like happy-go-lucky and you're having fun with it and you're laughing, and it's still very, very hard and stressful. But then you get these scenes that are dark like that, and then you feel the mood change within the crew and the actors and everything. I try to avoid movies that have these kind of dark undertones, but it's real because people take their lives and it's something that happens, and it kind of reminds you of, wow, life's delicate, and he's doing it over love, and he's doing it over his family crisis. And yeah, it's very, very heavy and sad. And the fact that he lives, it propels him and Margot together, because then he escapes the hospital and then she comes back home and she's in his tent listening to records. And again, another great song. And so that is another moment that sends you into this other important moment.
Yeah, Royal shows up at the hospital. Does this feel like a different Royal at this point? He's starting to change, even though he's trying to insert himself into, hey, look, you shouldn't be cheating on Raleigh. Hey, look, you're not over your wife's death. But this felt different to me.
Yeah,
when he showed up at the hospital.
Well, again, they've kicked him out. He's desperate, but he also loves his son. He's the one that really wanted to accept Royal back into the family. And so he has this part of his heart that loves him maybe a bit more than the others because he's been accepting of him all along. So when he hears that he's in the hospital and attempted suicide, he rushes there to his side because of that bond.
Whenever Margot and Richie are in the tent, he admits that he loves her and they kiss. My wife was not watching the whole movie. She was kind of in and out catching pieces of it. And she sees that scene and said, wait a minute, I thought they were siblings. I did learn from Wes Anderson that in the original script, they were supposed to be just straight up siblings. And they changed it to adopted, thank God. And I said, no, she's adopted. They're not blood relatives. And she said, still weird.
It's totally still weird. But I think I didn't realize that was in the original script, which would be too weird, I think.
But this doesn't come across like, for me, I guess I've seen the movie quite a few times.
Yeah.
I don't know why it doesn't come across as shocking or uncomfortable to me for some reason.
No, it doesn't. And again, that's why it's perfect. It's a little weird, but it's not that weird. And they have this weird kind of, again, eccentric family, dysfunctional family. That's, again, it doesn't really surprise me. And it's just part of the nuance and strangeness of this world.
Definitely strange.
Yeah.
Royals had his mentor moments with two of the kids. And now to start chapter 7, he gets that with Richie. On the rooftop, Richie confides in Royal and says that he's in love with Margot. And Royal comes around and, he's not on board with it at first. He's got, isn't that your sister? He does come around to support him eventually. Richie spots Mordecai.
Yes.
Mordecai then lands.
I'm so glad you're saying that because I have it circled in my notes because that is so great to me.
What does that represent for Richie, that when he sets Mordecai free, and then now at this moment where he's having a redemptive moment with Royal, and now Mordecai lands and returns? What does that represent for Richie?
Well, I think that the hawk is so amazing in a lot of ways. And I was watching this last night And I said to my wife, I said, God, that would be so cool to have a hawk. Those birds are so powerful and they're so amazing. But the fact that he let the hawk go was a moment in his story, like letting go of the past. And then the fact that he's up there with his dad, who hadn't been around in years and years, and they're having this heartfelt conversation. The fact in that moment that the bird comes back is a powerful moment. Like, wow, this bird actually cared for me and remembered where it lived and traveled who knows how far to come back. Is this, and again, it's just such a special scene.
This is where I really started to buy that Royal is changing. I
That's
just feel the genuineness. I don't even know if that's a word either. I'm making shit up as we go here. I
I
feel
love
a
it, man. I love
genuineness
it.
from Royal at this point. I'm starting to buy that he's changing, because then they both go to Eli's and they offer to help him with his drug
That's
abuse.
right.
And then Royal shows up to Ethylene and offers finally an official divorce. So there's now
That's right.
the sequences of redemptive acts from
And
Royal
yeah,
that I start to think, okay, he's starting to get it now. It's not fake being sick so my family comes around to caring for me. It's show support, show your love in what you say and what you do. I'm starting to buy Royal is changing, even though I still think he's kind of an asshole. I still
yep.
start to buy that he's changing.
It's so well done. The fact that he starts this progressive steps to move on and do the right thing. So that's one of the steps. He says, here's your divorce papers. And then the cool part is he goes, always love you. I think that something like that, he's not going to ever stop loving her, but he's going to do the right thing because he realizes that she'll never have him back. And then it just starts to all come together at that moment. And that's kind of one of the starting points. And, and it all starts to come together and get wrapped up in this chapter.
Well, he has his last redemptive act that we see, or at least hear about, is in chapter 8 when Henry and Ethylene, it's their wedding day, and of course they're getting married at the house, because why wouldn't they? And Eli, on a bit of a drug bender, it seems, crashes his car in front of the house, and Royal saves Arianuzi. They can't save the dog,
Yeah,
unfortunately, which again is like another one of those, oh my God, to leave the dog alone.
I know.
That's the worst. And
I know.
Chaz, he realizes what happens and that Eli almost essentially killed his children. And he goes after Eli. And what I thought was a pretty fun chase scene throughout the house, which I imagine is not easy
was great.
to stage and plan.
No,
And
not at all.
Chaz throws Eli over a wall and they lie down in a Zen garden. Royal saving Arianuzi, that feels like the closest thing that they can give to redemption for Royal.
Yeah, he saves them. And I think that really puts Ben Stiller in a point of like, you know what? I need to forgive him for his past and move forward, saves my son's lives, and really cool. And then laying in that Zen garden is perfect. And they both are laying there realizing like, my life's a mess. I need to change.
Yeah, they both say I think Eli says he needs help, and Chaz
Right.
says I do too, or something along those lines.
Exactly. And it's so perfect. And the way it's shot, and they're just laying there, just like, all right, we fought and we realized we need help.
There's a panning shot that we get where it's when Royal's he's talking to the Dalmatian in the fire truck, and we pretty much have all of our characters here.
Yep.
And that brings almost everybody back together. So what are you doing on set? Because that's not like looking at your call sheet being like, all right, we need these people at this time and these people at this time. You're getting everybody in one panning shot to bring everything together. So I imagine that's pretty stressful.
Yeah.
But the way that it's
thinking about it.
yeah, but the final product looks effortless.
Oh yeah. I mean, these are pros. I mean, these are pros, and they're genius, and so everything's coming together. But yeah, getting those people ready is tough. And what happens is you usually start. It just depends. Like sometimes you get them all ready and rehearse and figure out your shots. Then they go back and finish getting ready. Then they come back, and then you start piecing it together. Or you start your day with a smaller scene, maybe with like, Ben Stiller and Owen or whatever. You start with that shot, and that gives you an opportunity to get the rest of the cast ready and dressed and through hair and makeup up there while you're focusing on your few hours with those other cast. So it's such a crazy puzzle. And I still, like you, like it's shocking that it all comes together
Yeah.
It's wild.
I've gotten to the movie nerd level, whatever. If there were levels, I'm
It's
nearing the
great.
top where I look at that stuff and I'm like, God damn it, that's cool. Because
Yeah.
he's using so many different techniques. And one of them I noticed on the latest watch is all the different montages that if you watch it again, you're like, oh, montage, montage, montage. There's one
Yep.
here at the end too, where they bury Buckley. Finally, Etheline and Henry get married. Margot, we see her next play that is mirroring their lives
Their life.
as Tenenbaum children. Raleigh and Dudley are on a promo tour for Raleigh's new book,
Yeah.
which is great. Eli's in rehab.
Yep.
Richie is teaching tennis to children, and
This
then
is wonderful.
Royal's death, but he died. What was it? He's on a battleship or something. I can't remember what the
Oh,
headstone
right.
says.
Yeah, they put it on his gravestone that he like died in battle in a battleship or something like that, even though he just had a heart attack.
It was died tragically rescuing his family from the wreckage of a destroyed sinking battleship.
Yeah,
And then
that's incredible.
the epilogue is just, Royal is leaving behind his set of encyclopedias, which feels like a pretty strange choice, and a
Yeah,
BB gun salute to Royal at
that's right.
his funeral, which feels very fitting. And, not for nothing, everybody's there at the funeral. If you
Yeah,
have an estranged parent that's been absent from your life for 20 plus years and then they end up passing in another 5 or 6 years, is everybody attending that funeral?
right.
I'm not so sure.
Yeah, you're right. But yeah, it goes to show he did leave his mark, and with all that chaos and those montage pieces show is even though he was this deadbeat dad, his last chapter was so important to that family. And again, that's where the heart comes in, because it's not just these beautiful shots and this great music and these great cast. This script shows, and it comes together perfectly at the end, and it shows that his impact helped his kids
It
and
got
helped
them
the family
it helped them
grow.
get their lives back on track. They've
Right.
been off track for a long time, and it showed that his selfishness, which then became selflessness as the
Right.
movie went on, helped kind of get them back on track.
I know.
So
And
it's a brilliant.
that's
It's so well.
it's brilliant.
Doing these things, I literally look at the films that people select and say, nope, don't get it. And then I start to really watch it multiple times and do the research and be like, oh shit, now I get it.
Yep.
And then have these
I know.
conversations and be like, no, I really get it. Whatever the
Oh,
next stage is at getting it. Having these conversations shed so much different light on how the movie was made and things that go on behind the scenes and how it's all put together and the themes. I think it's awesome.
oh yeah. That this has only cemented the fact that this is probably my favorite movie of all time because of all these layers and all the emotion and all the humor. If you start to dig in a movie and you realize, well, maybe this isn't like worth the criterion, or maybe this isn't something that I love, but it's only made it even more in an important piece of art and film,
Well,
in my mind.
you're going to get your opportunity here to sum it up. So we close every episode of this podcast where the guests, they get to give their answer to why this film. So why the Royal Tenenbaums? Why does it deserve its place in the Criterion Collection?
It's a perfect film. The cast is probably the best ensemble cast I've ever seen. The music is fantastic. The characters are so complex. The humor is fantastic, but there's so much heart to it. The way it's shot is impeccable. The production design is top notch. The way the script was written to show these people, and immediately you're in this world, and the fact that we're still talking about it was shot in 2001, and it's a movie you can keep watching and you keep noticing these intricacies and this depth and these layers is the reason why it's in the Criterion.
Thank you again to Chris Cook for taking the time to speak with me about the Royal Tenenbaums. If you'd like to support the show for as little as $3 a month, you can do so by selecting the Support the Show link in the episode description. You can follow the podcast on Instagram for updates and subscribe on YouTube for full video versions of each episode. Links also in the description below. Next time, I'll be joined by President of Dark Star Pictures, Michael Repsch, to discuss Kagemusha. Thanks again for listening. Please be sure to follow, share, and keep an eye out for the next episode.